Welcome to The Explainer. Our world is rarely ever black and white, right? So how do we make smart decisions when things are so uncertain? Well, we need a special language for that. And today, we're going to learn the basics of that language, probability.
Look, at its heart, probability isn't about having some magical crystal ball. Not at all. It's really about giving a number to our uncertainty so we can actually deal with it. It hands us a framework to make the best possible guess, even when the data we're looking at is, messy or incomplete.
All right, so let's really dive into this. The thing is, we're surrounded by randomness all the time, whether we stop to think about it or not.
And this is the core problem right here. Think about it. In machine learning, you get all this messy input, a blurry picture, a staticky audio signal, and you have to make a call. Is it a cat or a dog? Is that a real signal or just noise? Well, probability is what lets us build models that can sift through all that messy data, look at the features, and actually calculate the odds, the likelihood that it's a cat and not a dog.
Okay, so to get a handle on this, we've got to learn the basic vocabulary first, the building blocks of this new language. First up is something called a random experiment. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but it's really not. It's just any process where you can't predict the exact outcome for sure. The perfect example? Tossing a coin. You know it's going to be either heads or tails, but you just don't know which one it'll be on this particular flip.
So that complete list of all the possible results, that's what we call the sample space. It's like the entire alphabet for our experiment. Every single thing that could possibly happen is in there. For that coin toss, the sample space is super simple. It's just heads and tails. That's it. Nothing else is possible.
And you can see how this works with a few examples. For that single coin toss, you've got two outcomes. Easy. For a regular six-sided die, you've got 6 possibilities. But check this out. What happens when we toss 2 coins? Suddenly, our sample space has 4 distinct outcomes. Heads heads, heads tails, tails heads, and tails tails. The key takeaway here is that no matter what you're doing, figuring out this complete list is always step 1.
Okay, so if the sample space is our alphabet, all the possible letters, then an event is like a word we build with those letters. It's a specific outcome or a group of outcomes that we're interested in.
Exactly. Let's go back to rolling a die. The event we're watching for might not be just rolling a 5. It could be something broader, like rolling an even number. In that case, our event is the specific collection of outcomes, 2, 4, and 6. So an event is it's the specific slice of the sample space that we actually care about for our question.
All right, every language needs grammar, right? Rules of the road. And for probability, its grammar comes down to 3 incredibly simple but powerful rules or axioms laid out by the mathematician Andrei Kolmogorov.
And believe it or not, these 3 rules are the entire foundation. Everything else is built on top of this. Let's walk through them with our die roll. First, non-negativity. The probability of any event can't be negative. The chance of rolling a 4 can't be minus 10%, right? It's just common sense. Second, normalization. The probability of the entire sample space is 1 or 100%. This just means something has to happen. When you roll a die, you have to get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And finally, additivity. This one's for events that can't happen at the same time, what we call mutually exclusive. You can't roll a 1 and a 3 on the same roll. So the probability of rolling a 1 or a 3 is just the chance of rolling a 1 plus the chance of rolling a 3. That's it. Seriously. The entire field of probability theory grows from these 3 seeds.
And this is where that mutually exclusive idea from the last rule becomes super important. On the left, you've got events that can't happen at the same time. Simple. You just add them up. But what about events that can overlap? Let's say you're drawing a card from a deck. What's the probability of getting a king or a heart? Well, you could draw the king of hearts, which is both. That's the overlap. If you just added the probability of a king and the probability of a heart, you'd be counting the king of hearts twice. So the rule says we have to subtract that overlap to avoid double counting. Makes perfect sense when you see it laid out like that.
All right, so we've got our basic vocabulary and our grammar rules. But the world isn't static, right? We're always getting new information. So how does that change the odds? This is where things get really interesting, and where probability turns from just counting things into a real tool for reasoning.
Yeah, this is the million-dollar question. We see something, we learn something new. How do we update what we believe about the world in a logical way? Well, it turns out probability gives us the perfect mathematical tool to do exactly that.
The tool for this is called conditional probability.
And that notation, P of A with a vertical bar B, looks a little weird, but it literally just means, what's the probability of A happening given that we already know B has happened? What we're really doing is calculating the odds inside a new, smaller universe, a universe where B is a fact. The formula just tells us how to do it. You take the chance of both A and B happening together, and you divide it by the chance of B happening in the first place.
Think about it like this. We're shrinking the universe. Let's go back to our die roll. Normally, our universe is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But what if I roll the die, cover it, and then peek and tell you, hey, the number is greater than 3. Boom. Our universe just shrank. Now, the only possibilities are 4, 5, and 6. The odds of everything have changed because we have new information. This brings us to a really critical distinction: independence versus dependence. If two events are independent, knowing one tells you absolutely nothing about the other. Think flipping a coin and then rolling a die. The coin coming up heads doesn't change the odds of rolling a 6 one bit. But if events are dependent, one does affect the other. Imagine drawing 2 cards from a deck without putting the first one back. The first card you draw totally changes the probabilities for what the second card could be.
So then we have something called the chain rule. Now, the formula might look a little abstract, but it's really just our conditional probability formula flipped around. And it is so useful. It lets us figure out the probability of a whole sequence of things happening, like A and then B, by chaining together these conditional probabilities one step at a time.
Okay, so we've learned some vocabulary, some grammar. Why does any of this matter? Why build this language of uncertainty? Because, as it turns out, this is the engine running under the hood of so much of our modern technology.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't just abstract math for a textbook. Look at these applications. That chain rule we just talked about, it's the key to how language models work. They predict the next most probable word in a sentence. And conditional probability is the heart of things like Bayes' theorem, which powers everything from your email spam filter to medical diagnostic tests.
And this, right here, this is the payoff. This is where it all comes together. Everything we've talked about, defining a sample space, figuring out events, applying conditional probability, it all leads to this. A machine can take an image, break it down into features like edges and colors, and then calculate the probability that its class is cat. That calculation, P of class given features, is the heart of so much of modern AI.
So, there you have it. That's our introduction to the language of probability. It's not about predicting the future with certainty. It's a powerful framework for reasoning in a world that's full of maybes. And it leaves us with a really important question to think about. As our technology gets better and better at calculating the odds for us, how do we, as humans, decide how much uncertainty we're willing to live with? When are the odds good enough to make a call?